I'm going to read from Genesis chapter 6. Interesting, what we've been doing in our worship so far this morning. This is normally referred to as Noah and the ark. Actually, it ought to be about God and everything. It's God and Noah, God and the ark, and God and the flood. It's very easy with these big Bible stories to concentrate on the main human sort of person involved. But really, this is all about God. Genesis 6:9. Now, again, those of you who were dealing with Genesis with me before Christmas, you remember that I said that in the beginning of Genesis we have two sources for the story of the creation. They're slightly different. They're very complementary. One in Genesis 1 and one in Genesis 2. The same sources combine to give us a story of the flood. The first one is concise, and the second one rambles a bit. But together they give us a great witness to this amazing cosmic event. So Genesis 6:9. This is the story of Noah. He had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Noah had no faults and was the only good man of his time. He lived in fellowship with God, but everyone else was evil in God's sight, and violence had spread everywhere. God looked at the world and saw that it was evil, for the people were all living evil lives. And God said to Noah, I have decided to put an end to all mankind. I will destroy them completely, because the world is full of their violent deeds. Build a boat for yourself out of good timber, make rooms in it and cover it with tar inside and out. Make it 133 meters long, 22 meters wide, and 13 meters high. Make a roof for the boat and leave a space of 44 centimeters between the roof and the sides. Build it with 3 decks and put a door in the side. I am going to send a flood on the earth to destroy every living being. Everything on the earth will die, but I will make a covenant with you. Go into the boat with your wife, your sons, and their wives. Take into the boat with you a male and female of every kind of animal and of every kind of bird, in order to keep them alive. Take along all kinds of food for you and for them. And Noah did everything that God had commanded. The Lord said to Noah, Go into the boat with your whole family. I have found that you are the only one in the world who does what is right. Take with you 7 pairs of each kind of ritually clean animal, but only 1 pair of each kind of unclean animal. Take also 7 pairs of each kind of bird. Do this so that every kind of animal and bird will be kept alive to reproduce again on the earth. 7 days from now I am going to send rain that will fall for 40 days and nights in order to destroy all the living beings I have made. And Noah did everything that the Lord commanded. Noah was 600 years old when the flood came on the earth. He and his wife and his sons and their wives went into the boat to escape the flood. A male and female of every kind of animal and bird, whether ritually clean or unclean, went into the boat with Noah, as God had commanded. 7 days later the flood came. And when Noah was 600 years old, in the 17th day of the 2nd month, all the outlets of the vast body of water beneath the earth burst open. All the floodgates of the sky were opened, and rain fell on the earth for 40 days and nights. On that same day Noah and his wife went into the boat with their 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives. With them went every kind of animal, domestic and wild, large and small, and every kind of bird. A male and a female of each kind of living being went into the boat with Noah, as God had commanded. Then the Lord shut the door behind Noah. The flood continued for 40 days, and the water became deep enough for the boat to float. And the water became deeper, and the boat drifted on the surface. It became so deep that it covered the highest mountain. It went on rising until it was about 7 meters above the tops of the mountains. Every living being on the earth died, every bird, every animal, and every person. and everything on earth that breathed died. And the Lord destroyed all living beings on the earth, human beings, animals, and birds. And the only ones left were Noah and those who were with him in the boat. And the water did not start going down for 150 days. Vast and amazing story there, which in outline we know well. We've all done Noah and the ark and the flood. And I think it's tremendous when after God says this and this and this and this, two of those paragraphs end with, quite simply, and Noah did everything that God said. How many days in our lives could we add on a comment, and we did everything that God has said? That obedience. Obedience is a key in this quest of faith. And let's be challenged by this passage, because it gives us in Noah a great example of what faith means. And faith here has got a lot to do with obedience rather than opinion. It's not so much what you agree with, it's what you do. And Noah built the boat. He built it. So you had a boat. You didn't have an agreement. He didn't believe in the boat. He didn't believe in the flood. He built the boat. And you know as well as I do that sort of you can tell what you believe by how you behave. You might say to me, I believe in this and this and this, but what you actually believe in will determine the way you live this week. I trust in the Lord. I've sung the songs. I believe in the Lord. The Bible tells me I can trust in him for all things. But if I go home and I'm anxious about something, then I really believe that there's something to be anxious about, and I better be anxious. You see, I behave with what I really, truly think. You know, you've got the old story that you can tell whether you trust in the strength of a bridge by whether you walk over it, not by your opinion of the bridge. Not if somebody else can walk over it, or Jesus can walk over it, but are you going to walk over it? You can tell if you trust Jesus with your resources and provide what you need through your generosity by giving stuff away. It's not a theoretical matter. He builds the boat. It's when you've got this massive, great boat, this is the result of faith. That's a good challenge to start off with. And it is something which he does ahead of the flood, doesn't he? Faith is so often counterintuitive. You know, for me, look, let's see a bit of rain and I'll think about the boat. But he builds it with no rain. He probably builds it in the middle of a mountainous desert. What a place to build a boat. And you know as well as I do, there's a real sense in which faith is faith in the future. God has said, I'm going to do this, so we have faith before we see it. And so many great men of faith, we've got Abraham, went to a country that God had not yet told him where it was. So he moves before he sees it. And Jesus says, doesn't he, with the business of Thomas, you know, it's good if you believe without seeing. There's a real essence of faith, believing forwards. If you just see it, well, it might be valuable, but it's not faith. God likes to see that we have faith, not just in the evidence, but in him himself. And that's a challenge to us. This often is like a challenge to the church. We often have to do things before we see the result. We can't do that. That's ridiculous. That's going to look really bad on the minutes of the church council. But actually, we are trusting God for what has not yet happened. Perhaps in your own life, you're challenged at the moment to go forward in faith, and you think, I need a sign. It's a bit like, you know, like Noah saying, well, show me one cloud, you know, sort of thing. But the great thing about faith in looking forwards and not having seen anything quite yet. Perhaps you need that in a relationship, in a matter of forgiveness. Perhaps you need to step out this week in something you needed to do or you were hoping to do. And you think, if only I just had a little bit of a nudge, I can do it. But faith is, I just do it because this is what the Lord wants. But there's also a sense in this that although faith is a test, and although faith is important before the action, it's also preparation, isn't it? The last thing you want to do is there's an absolute deluge, great floods, and then you say, better build a boat. I mean, it's just not going to work, is it? I mean, can you imagine building a boat in the middle of all this stuff? I mean, for instance, it says here in Ephesians 6, this is the thing, isn't it? So put on God's armor now, so that when the evil day comes, you will be able to resist the enemy's attacks. Put on the armor now, when there's no sign of a battle. Then when there is a battle, you're kitted out. Yeah. Terrible visions of trying to put on armor in the middle of a battle. It's a disaster. Yeah. So that faith is for the future, not only because it is a sign that we believe, but because it is a preparation for that which is going to come, which God has promised. You know. And so many, again, do this. Go, says God. Go, says God. Well, I've moved. It shows I've gone. Well, it means that when you get there, you're in the right place. It's not just symbolic. It has practical applications. Say, for instance, taking up the business of having faith for rebuilding a relationship. Just, you say, Lord, I'm sure that if I ask this person that we need to have a bit of forgiveness and reconciliation, they're going to say what they've said for the last few months. No. In so many words. But I'm going to go forward in faith on this, so I'm going to go and see them. But then you think, that's good. I'm going to go forward in faith, although I don't see any evidence of it yet. But you could build an ark, couldn't you? You could say, well, perhaps I could invite them round, or we could go out for coffee. Unheard of. But we could say we're going to go out for coffee. Well, look in your diary and see if you've got... clear out some space next week, so you've got three mornings when you could have coffee. All right? Otherwise, the person says, because of your faith, the person says, wow, I've been waiting for you to say this. So let's meet for coffee. When can you meet for coffee? Look in your diary and say, March. You know? You haven't done it in faith. There's no boat. There's nothing there. It's not just symbolic. We plan for the future. We were talking on the circuit level about all the business of inviting new staff, a new minister, 2 new ministers coming to us now and buying houses for them. You know, for next August, for goodness sake. But if you don't, when you get to August, you haven't got the kit and you haven't got the people. It is an act of faith, but faith in some ways is an act of preparation. As Hebrews says, the substance of things not seen. Lay the foundations now. Now, just say one other thing about faith that Noah really spoke to me about when I looked at this week. That faith often, as with Noah, launches you on a course of action, which is not just, I have faith, the sun shines, and we're all blessed. But in fact, is often takes you on a course which is quite long and prolonged and gives you 57 varieties of reason to give up on the way. I mean, just think about this. He doesn't say, I have faith, let there be a boat. You know, he starts off building this thing. Now, where's he going to get all that wood from to start off with? You know, we read he was the only person who really believed, so his family didn't believe. They were just along to be a breeding group. They weren't particularly good. So they probably gave him a heart. Oh, Dad's building a boat. Has he ever built a boat before? No. Has he got the wood? No. Has he got the money? No. Is there any sea nearby? No. Is it raining? No. You can imagine it. I can imagine my daughter's giving me a hard time. You know, I've decided to build a boat, girls. Sort of thing. You know, well, have an Airfix kit, Dad. Sort of thing. But everybody else, they're angry about this. They're going to ask him, why is he building this? You know, but they start off by asking him, what is he building, for goodness sake? But and he tells them, and they're going to be angry. Because God is going to, wow, they're not happy with this. And there's the blood and the sweat and the tears and building the boat. And then there's the animals. All those animals not getting on. So, but throughout a period, must be of weeks, if not months, what a lot of hot, sweaty, miserable moments when you could have said, oh, I'm just not going on with this. That sense of perseverance in faith. It is good if you can say, I've decided to give £50,000 to Christian Aid, and your finger's on the button on your computer and you go, send, boom. That's great. But not all faith is like that. It's often a matter of persevering and carrying on and going on, and it's getting worse rather than getting better. So there's a real challenge to our faith. And I would challenge you this morning as God challenged Noah. Are you going to do something about what you believe? Or are you going to do something, even if it's counterintuitive, and you've got no evidence for it, ahead of what I'm going to do? And are you going to persevere with this faith? Now, there's Noah, there's the faith, and there's you and me, all right? But then what happens? Well, God must do some big miracles here, really. This is an important thing. If you think about this story of Noah and the ark, it's a great story for a children's illustrated Bible, isn't it? It's a great story for messy church. It's a great story to preach evangelically on without ever questioning whether it happened or not. Because it's not easy, is it? Leave alone building this massive great boat with no wood and no water and all that stuff. Even if he built the boat, when he built the boat, there is honestly not enough room in the boat for all the animals and birds in the world. There just is not enough room. Whatever the religious right in America says, there ain't enough room. And where is he going to get them all from? It's okay going and finding some goats and cattle and sheep and, you know, whatever they got in the Middle East. Where is he going to find a polar bear? How is he going to get hold of a kangaroo? You can't airbrush this out because it's a Bible story, you know? And when he's got them all, they aren't going to get on, are they? Some of them are going to look at the others and think, there is a meal. And when he's got them in the boat at a certain ambient temperature, a whole lot of them will die because it's too cold, and a whole lot of them will die because it's too hot. Leave alone all the stuff you've got to have to feed them. Leave alone all the stuff that they will produce after you've fed them. And I can tell you as well that there is not enough ice in the ice caps, even if the whole lot melted, to flood Everest. We can flood Bangladesh, but we are not going to flood Tibet. Right? This is not an easy story. So this is a work of God. A lot of academics will tell you, well, this is a metaphor. It's not a metaphor. The idea that the Bible tells us the size and the dimensions of it, the message is this is real. You don't have dimensions of a metaphor, all right? This is real. But it is a real act of God. There is the faith of Noah, and then there is the miracle of God. It's a bit like the feeding of the 5,000. We have 5 loaves and 2 fish, and we feed 5,000 people. I don't know how it happens, but God does it. So perhaps God, as he builds this boat, and he gives him superhuman strength and resources to build this boat, I don't know, perhaps God does a TARDIS thing. Perhaps the ark is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. I don't know. But early in the life of the world, God has recently created all these animals and let them disperse. So God brings them together, you know. He takes Noah's faith and he brings... So Noah's got a few scraggy goats and a cattle and a horse and all this sort of thing, you know. And God turns up and says, hey, here's a kangaroo. You see a sense that God picks up the faith, picks up what's going on, and does something more with it. And this is really encouraging, that if you step out in faith, God will pick it up and run with it. Lord, I pray that you'd help me with this. Wow, I didn't expect that amount of help. I hope that would improve. I didn't think it was this good. I thought we could get on a bit. I could get on with this person and we'd at least live in peace. I didn't expect them to invite me to parties. You know, there's more to it than you thought. We prayed for someone to come to church, but we didn't pray for all those people to come, and we didn't pray for such nice people to come, or whatever it is. God surprises us. Wow, can you imagine? Can you imagine what Noah must have thought, you know, about all those amazing animals turning up? God's humor, God's love. Come on, let's do some more, shall we? If we step out in faith in small ways this week, difficult as it might be, God will pick it up and do stuff that you couldn't have done and turn it onto something greater. It's his grace, his active presence that picks up faith. He allows faith to activate. If you haven't started building a boat, there will be no kangaroos. You know, it starts. No 5 loaves and 2 fishes, nothing. But God chooses to work like that. You just imagine that you can access God's great grace in your life through a real step of real faith this week. Isn't that tremendous? But we just have to say at the end, don't we, before we finish, God acts in grace to do something much bigger than Noah's faith. But at the heart of what he does is not just, let's do something bigger and better, let's find something, let's expand this, which he does. The ark is not a symbol. The ark is not somewhere to live. It's not a houseboat. It's not a sort of portable temple. It's not an icon. It is a source of salvation. He is saved by this boat. At the center of grace, there is salvation, not improvement. What does it say in Ephesians 2? We are saved by grace through faith. All right. The ark is built and inhabited by all these animals through faith, through Noah's faith, and by the grace of God, the great act of God. But Noah is saved himself. At the heart of grace is salvation, not improvement, not just inspiration and not just better. God can do more things in our lives, yes, but the key thing that he does is salvation. We are saved by grace. We're not entertained by grace. We're not improved by grace. We are saved by grace through faith. And you can see at the heart of this story, God's grace, God's will to save. He comes and tells Noah everything so he can be saved. He challenges him to faith so he doesn't drown. Noah can't, you can say that. Come on, let's build this boat so that you can be saved. God seeks that we should be saved. He's not playing hard to get and wondering if we'll catch on or not. Prevenient grace. Grace before I believed. He loved us before we knew his name, sort of thing. Then we've got this wonderful sort of bit of anthropomorphism that you get early in the Bible before they become sort of slightly more pious and polite. God just turns up at the end when they're all inside and closes the door. That's a wonderful little bit. He just shut the door. When I read that, I was reminded of a couple of occasions way back when my grandchildren were smaller than they are now, and they needed more accessories than they need now. And my children would turn up in some car stuffed to the roof with everything that you needed for these children, you know. So, and I got the buggies and the toys and the, life support systems that babies need. And they're all in there. And at the end, when they're going home, you stuff it all in, don't you, right to the roof. And you wave, you're going to say goodbye to whoever it is you're saying goodbye to. And it all falls out the door. And you shove it back in. And then you shut the door to make sure they are safe, and you pull on the handle, make sure it's shut. You feel like that with God. That he loves us. He wants us to be safe. I'm going to shut the door. Just make sure we're safe. What a wonderful thing that is. Make sure so-and-so's in. He has a will to do this. I'm going to do this. Make them in. And then I'm going to make them safe. We've sung a lot of songs this morning about the cosmic nature of God. God is not just cuddly and I've shut the door, Just because I shut the door on my daughter's car and I don't keep them safe on the M6. I just shut the door. But with God, he sends all this rain. And it says twice, and this is important, isn't it? Not rain just to sort of pour down till it's finally crashed its way through the roof and drowns them all. Now, this rain creates the water that lifts them up. The flood is the medium of salvation. They don't drown because they float. And it lifted them up, and they floated, and they drifted around on the surface. It says that twice. And God will use all of his resources to lift you up and to keep you safe. And all that out of responding to him in faith. I would encourage you this morning to say, Lord, I want to respond in faith, to do something practical, to make a move, to step out in faith in some sort of way. And I know that you're going to pick this up, and your salvation is going to kick in here. I can't do the salvation bit. You do the salvation bit. I'll do the faith. But remember, when you decide, will I respond in faith or not? When God comes to Noah, he basically says, I love you. I want to save you. I want you to build this boat. But he doesn't say, if you don't build the boat, the flood's off. He says there's going to be a flood. The message is, you build or you drown. When God shuts the door, he decides who's in, and he decides no one else gets in. And when the flood lifts them up, it's the same flood that drowns the rest. There is a crisis here. God has decided to come in love and in grace. For those who have faith and believe, anybody, however awful they were in the first place, he wishes that they will be saved. But the people say, no. In the last couple of weeks in these lectionary readings after Christmas, we were talking about Simeon in the temple, and after all that nice business with the nunc dimittis, Simeon then speaks that this child will be for the destruction and the salvation of many in Israel. There's a choosing here. There's a division. And when Jesus comes into Galilee, he preaches the good news. That's great. And what does he say? So repent. There is a division, there is a sorting, there's a sifting, there's a shaking, which will happen whether or not. This is a story of a flood. It's not a story of a boat trip. God does not say, no, I want you to build me a boat. If you haven't got a boat, you can't come on the boating holiday. Christianity is not a boating holiday. Christianity is a salvation for a loving God who shuts the door, who brings us in, who takes our very, very minimal faith and makes a great and gracious salvation. As you come to communion this morning, say, Lord, I'm in here. I'm in. But have in your mind's eye, when you go home, what could I do to step out in faith? Not I have faith, but I do what? Because even with this thing, it starts, doesn't it? It starts with one bit of wood. Gopher wood, it used to be, didn't it? One bit of gopher wood. I was going to then say, and all the animals started off with one gopher, but I won't say that. But they would have been around gophers. With a good start. Lord, give me the faith and give me the kangaroos.